Hybrid compliance cars, even the most sacred of historic sporting icons, have electrified.
Can you believe they hybridized the 911?
Can you believe they hybridized the Corvette?
This is an outrage. We're angry.
Deeply.
I'm so mad. In fact, I'm so mad. I think we should do a comprehensive test between these two cars to find out which is best. No, worst.
Worse. We're going to complain about going slow.
Yeah.
We're going to complain about going fast.
But if hypothetically these cars, if we like them, then I would say that this 911 GTS, now the GTS model only comes as a hybrid, but don't panic, you can still get the 911 and the S and other Porsches, but this is a hybrid 911.
This doesn't have an electric motor to the wheels though, it just puts it through the normal powertrain. This here Corvette E-Ray though, it gets a little more sacrilegious because we've seen all-wheel drive Porsches before, but this is an all-wheel drive Corvette with an electric motor on the front axle.
Are you trying to tell me this Corvette is all-wheel drive, mid-engine, automatic only, and a hybrid?
I can't say these words on camera.
Oh, it's too violent for children.
Today then, we're going to talk about what these new hybrids are like, but also how they compare to the non-hybrid traditional models that we love. More importantly though, we're going to dive into what these are like to drive fast and whether that electrification adds to or subtracts from the driving experience.
That's right. So you're telling me it's a double comparison. Not only are we comparing Corvette to 911, but we're also comparing each of these cars to their gas-only versions that we know pretty well.
Know and love.
Jokes aside, it's a gorgeous day. We have open, beautiful roads. Let's check out the hybrid Porsche and see if it's actually so anger-inducing. Well, we're sitting in a car and it's not running because it's a hybrid.
But it is running.
It is, and it's not. So we're gonna click over to Sport. Here's a funny thing I learned. Sport doesn't automatically turn off start-stop. Usually it does, but Porsche does.
That doesn't bother me at all.
Anyways, setting off sedately. And I think that's the thing I want to talk about before we go fast. We will. That I like how when you're not on it, it just feels like 911.
It does. It's just a very comfortable, handsome, commutable place to be. It's kind of harsh when you go over some bumps, but we're going to get to that.
It's true. And one of the things, speaking of bumps, I love that like the settings for my loud exhaust and my bumpy suspension are right here in the dash.
Yes.
Hard mounted. It's such a genius thing because sometimes I want sporty things and, oh no, a railroad crossing. Let me click soft suspension, go over the railroad crossing, and back at it. I don't have to like touch screen menu. A lot of thoughtful designs, a lot of space, a lot of practical things, but it also has to be a 911.
This new gen GTS came to us about a year ago, but it's actually just a revision of the existing 992. People refer to the 992-1, this is the 992-2. Introducing this hybrid tech, it puts all of the electrification through the drive wheels the same way it goes through the transmission. That means there's no separate electric motor up front, it's built into the trans.
It's like sandwiched in between there, and I think it's clever that they also use the electric motor as the starter, as the alternator, and there's also like, there's no belt-driven accessories like for the air conditioning. It's just spun up with a little motor, which means they can put it anywhere. It's very clever.
It is, and Porsche says that this only ends up adding a total of 50 kilograms to the car over the previous GTS. That's because they've been able to get rid of a lot, they've used lightweight battery chemistry, and the car doesn't feel any worse for it, at least on the weight front.
It doesn't feel any different than the previous GTS from memory. I mean, it's a 10th here, it is faster, but it doesn't feel markedly different. If you drove the old GTS and liked it, it's still here.
What's really important though is that because that goes through the transmission, that means that we still get to have rear wheel drive here if we want. You can get the GTS 4, which has a drive shaft going up front, but here we've just got rear drive silliness. We can actually get squirrely in here.
It's true, and I like that you have the option, and definitely of the two cars, I find that this one is the more likely to be squirrely and a bit adventurous versus the Corvette is very hooked up. But we have 532 system horsepower. The engine itself is making about 478, but you can't just add the electric power to the gas, it's tricky. But the point is that you have power in every gear. And it's also interesting because it's a single turbo, and the turbo has a small electric motor inside it, so it's instantly spooled. So we're at 3,000 RPM, we're cruising along, whack it, boost, instantly.
This turbocharger really does actually make this one of the most unique vehicles on the road right now, because this isn't something that's been done before. We've seen electrically driven compressors or turbochargers in other things, but here it's a full-fledged part of the hybrid system. It's really, really cool because you see, it doesn't have a wastegate. There's no choo-choo-choo-choo-choo when you let off the gas. It just uses all of that for regen. Then when you launch, it fills in the torque from 2,000 RPM, full 449 pound-feet right there from the start. Feels awesome.
And its rear drives, it'll light him up.
I just really want to drive home how cool that turbo is because, yeah, long term, that's going to be expensive. But this thing, it gets 40 kilowatts of regen from that motor in the transmission. It gets another 11 just from the turbocharger. That means the turbo is responsible for more than a fifth of all of the regen recharging the battery in this. That is way more than you would expect, especially of a fledgling technology like that.
It's a pretty amazing piece of kit that they have an electronic generator, because doesn't a turbo revolve at like 200,000 RPM?
It's obscene.
It's incredible. But I think the tech is so cool, but I think the cool part that I like is that if you didn't know, you wouldn't even know it's happening. It just feels like the engine is a 5-liter back there. It just feels immense because you have this electric shove in any gear. In fact, like you can be in fifth and stomp on it and you have electric power and away we go.
Porsche says that this is a 3-second car, and I don't think either of us believe that.
It's a 3-second car in the rain going up a hill.
Yes.
With 4 people in it.
But in classic Porsche fashion, we suspect that both that number and the horsepower output are probably understated. And in fact, other independent testing has actually shown times down toward 2.6.
Exactly. Over these train tracks though, you feel it. The bumps, way more than the Corvette.
You do. Now, we do have it on harsh suspension mode right now, but even when that is turned off, these things have a really, really stiff, almost unpleasant ride. Underneath, it's just normal stiff springs and relatively straightforward adaptive dampers. You can tighten it up a bit, but even when it's on soft mode, with those really low profile tires especially, there isn't much to insulate you.
That's the thing, it just doesn't have a lot of travel. And like, it's a shame because the car is otherwise so usable. You can put things in it, it's got a really nice trunk. The trunk can fit actually like 2 carry-on bags in it. It's a shame that like around town in Toronto, it's taking my kidneys out. But in its element, despite being a hybrid for the haters, it's so much fun. You have all this power everywhere. The 911-ness of it all is still so intact. Turbo working. I like that you could hear the turbo working.
It's a very unique sound. It's a sharp, high-pitched squeak. It's a little different, but it's definitely air compression sound.
But I think at the core of it, it still feels like a 911. The hybridness of it has not changed the car. It has not taken away anything that you would like about a modern 911. Maybe if it was like a naturally aspirated GT3, I'd feel differently, but for a GTS, this is just frankly better. This does get a lot better fuel economy than its previous, because previously the GTS was a 3-liter twin turbo. Now it's 3.6 single turbo hybrid. Fuel economy is better in the city, the highway, and combined, which you would kind of expect. It's a great car, and it also feels like the feeling of inherent quality, especially after being in Bowling Green's finest, is so different from basically any other car. Like Porsches just have an air of quality about them. Even this car is spec'd with lightweight glass, and even with that, it just still feels so solid, well assembled, and things look like they're built for the long haul. We have a very tasteful screen. I know you're offended by garish screens.
I am, but in general, Porsche has done a really inoffensive job of this. I often complain that Porsche cabins are a little bit dull, but I've got to grant that this is something that I can see aging very reasonably and very well, as you have mentioned as well. This is just tasteful, it's restrained, and it's a nice grown-up place to be.
It seems like it's built for the long haul, like it's built for someone that's going to own this for 10 years.
Also important on that utility front are those back seats. Back seats are actually automatically deleted in GTS, but it's no cost just to put them back in. And if you put them there, you're not going to want to put someone you actually like there, but it is handy to have when you're in a pinch. Flip down too, you can actually get quite a bit back there. There's room for several bags, or in the case of my transit needs, I carried 2 seats for my AMC in there last night. There is a lot of space in the back of this car. Add that to the front, which I have fit friends inside of and been able to close, and this just becomes a very surprisingly sensible car for normal everyday life and errand running. The bigger question is, how does this thing feel in the corners?
It feels great. It feels like 911s always have. It has this amazing steering feel for a modern car. It's not as good as cars used to be, but for a new car, the steering feels good. It weights up perfectly. And get this, El, the steering wheel is a circle.
I love a good circle.
There's some innovation for you.
Porsche's done a really good job, though. I really don't like electronic power steering, but this is a really inoffensive and really feelsome setup, I think.
It really does feel great. It's nicely weighted. I don't know, Porsche just nails it on this driving dynamic stuff. Everything is set up kind of how you would want it to be. We do have the Sport Chrono package on this car, so we have launch control, but it's just little things about this car. It's very thoughtfully built, and I think that it's going to be an interesting contrast to the Corvette when we hop in that. But you've driven it too. What do you think of it?
My read on it really is that, if anything, this car is just too good for its own good. This is an exceptional vehicle. It can get a little bit hairy, but in general, Porsche has engineered a lot of the volatility out. As much as it can feel like it wants to let go, these cars generally won't actually let you throw those 2/3 weight backwards. I find that it just ends up feeling a little bit clinical.
It is almost a bit too clean, and it's almost like they've perfected what we expect from a 911 and deliver it so perfectly that it just drives like a 911. If you've driven a 911, you kind of know what we're feeling right now in these seats. It's got more power and better economy, but the feeling is so consistent through it. But that being said, it's still the only rear-engine sports car you can buy, although interestingly, it has practically the exact same weight distribution as the Corvette.
It does, and I think with that, it's time to hop in there and see what Kentucky's got to offer.
It's time for a hot Corvette summer. El, I feel like there's something in between us. I feel like you're putting up a wall.
Can barely hold your hand.
This car leaves room for Jesus with the wall. If you're worried about your date getting handsy, Corvette C8 is the car for you, because ain't nothing getting across this.
Just make sure you get it this year, because for 2026, they're finally going to open that up. But as divisive and honestly oppressive as this feels, it is neat because they've given this a cockpit feel. They've made this feel like a supercar. This is not all that far removed from that Revuelto the other week.
It looks great for you. You have all this cool blue accent. I feel like I'm just in a sidecar at this point.
Just decorated like a neoprene wetsuit, yeah.
But that's not even the part that makes people mad, El. They get mad because it's got a battery.
Oh my goodness, and the front wheels pull the nose in places. Can you believe that?
Absurd.
Oh goodness.
This is the Corvette E-Ray, and what it is a interesting combination of other Corvettes. So you still have the LT2 from the base Corvette, the Z51, but it's the Corvette Z06 and ZR1 wide body on this car. It is 3.6 inches wider, and of course the headline piece, it has an electrically driven front axle. It adds about 155 horsepower or so of its own, which does two things. It makes this the first all-wheel drive Corvette ever, and it makes it really fast. This thing is 0 to 60 in the 2s if you look at GM's kind of cheaty numbers. But regardless, this is a 10-second car, 655 combined horsepower. How is it through the corners?
Well, I've got to say, as much as I've always been a Porsche girl, this is a lot of fun. And honestly, the last time I drove one of these was the same day that I drove a 992 Turbo S, and that day too, I had more fun in the Corvette. This is exciting.
It's super exciting, and I love that it has like torque at all the gears. Look at this cornering you get in a Corvette.
Well, and the big thing is that by having that power up there on the front axle, this thing is able to claw those front tires to sort of combat understeer. This can pull its nose through corners in the way that that Porsche can't. Now, of course, you can get that Porsche as a 4, and actually, even as a 4, the Porsche is still lighter. This is a heavy way of hybridizing and a heavy way of bringing all-wheel drive. But the trade-off? Well, they don't have a drive shaft down the middle.
Yes, but there's still a wall because there's actually the batteries under here. The Porsche battery is actually very small, about the size of a toaster, but this battery is kind of briefcase shaped here in the middle.
And with less power density, it takes more space within the structure of the car for the same capacity. They're both rated at 1.9 kilowatt hours. Now, how they use that power is different though, because the Porsche is always just passive. It's always just there in the background, augmenting that gasoline powertrain. This though, well, they say that it can drive electrically, but it comes with a really big caveat, and honestly, I think it's pretty funny.
It's called stealth mode, and you can drive it in front-wheel drive EV power only per the brochure. However, it has an obscure and strange set of requirements that have to be met for you to actually use this mode. And then, like pressing the EV button on a Prius, as soon as you tip into the throttle even a little bit, it kicks off.
But you can't just press a button to switch into electric mode in this. You have to actually stop the car, restart it in stealth mode, and then you have to very gently baby the throttle, because if you ask it for even the littlest bit too much torque, it will trigger back into gas mode and you can't return to electric until you turn the car all the way off. And as you experienced, it just may lock you out even if it says the hybrid battery is fully charged.
That being said, I can't complain about this mode too much because it is capable, technically, of driving by itself on EV power alone. The 911 is not in any mode or any function. It does not work that way. So I can't be that mad at it. Look at the power you get in fifth.
And you get motor noises, as well as actually, I think one of the first interesting uses of fake engine sound, which is that they've piped in a little bit of a whirry synthetic electric sound when you've got that electric power adding things in.
It just sound fun.
Yeah, it enriches the experience in a way that we're not used to from pumped in cabin sound. And then, of course, you give it, and as you say,
so fast.
It's so fast and it hooks up so well.
So it has a 6.2 liter pushrod engine in the back, which is, for all intents and purposes, a very spicy version of a Silverado engine. It's the LT, it's not a flat plane, it's a very simple engine. However, you can't argue it works, makes 490 horsepower back there, and like Al said, supplanted with the electric power up front, it's a kind of a DIY GTR. It remains the last mid-engine, naturally aspirated car you can buy under $1 million, because yes, you can get a Revuelto or something, but in a car that you and I could actually hope to buy, it's the only offering.
Well, and you know what? I'm actually having more fun in this than I was in the Revuelto. The Revuelto is faster, and yeah, it makes more noise. It's got that V12, but it's so fast that it's all over before you know it. This is still stupid fast, and it's kind of over before you know it, but there's a little more time to savor. And this, I find, still gives you some rewarding sounds, even at partial throttle, when you're just taking it a little more chill. You don't
It sounds better than the Porsche.
It sounds different than the Porsche. If you're a potato enthusiast, this is great.
It's got that chop.
But I'm not a potato enthusiast. I actually like the slightly more sophisticated, but still cammy, lumpy sound that you get there in the 911. This is exciting. Yeah, I enjoy a muscular V8 sound, but this one just sounds kind of potato, 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 potato.
But talking about those much more expensive cars like the Revuelto, it's important to note that this car does start $35,000 less than the Porsche GTS. And even as tested, this is a 3LZ, so you get nice leather trim and contrasting stitching and these unique GT2 seats. Even with all those options, it's still about 40 grand less than our Porsche as tested. It has a base price of about $150,000, and as you see it here, about $186,000.
The Porsche numbers, though, they start at $180,000, and that one there is up toward $220,000. And it's really not hard to make a GTS cost $250,000.
And the other thing about the price is that it is the cheapest car you can buy with standard carbon ceramic brakes. There are more affordable cars that you can option carbon ceramics, but on the Corvette E-Ray, they are standard. And at $150,000 and some change, that is by some margin the most affordable car with carbon ceramics. The value proposition in the Corvette is stellar as always.
On one hand, then, this definitely wins out on price. On the other, well, you could argue the price sensitivity of people shopping in this segment. But even in that case, a $30,000, $40,000 delta buys you a really nice vacation, and that is a worthwhile consideration.
It buys you a loaded CRV. The whole CRV in between these. And I think that's always what people come down to, is that you can't beat the performance package for the money on a Corvette. You pay for it in other ways. Like, yes, like this button thing is kind of strange, and it doesn't have the same hewn from a solid chunk of granite that the Porsche does, but it banks the numbers, it's exciting, and it does it for way less money. So I don't know, you can't be that mad at it.
There's still a question though. Good car for the money. Does that still feel as special as the Porsche does, just with that solid reputation and air that it carries itself with?
I think the thing we just discussed in the Porsche is true, though. That it just feels like a 911. This is a completely unique experience for this that you can buy. Short of a Revuelto, only place you can get that. That is super unique. And I know it's a for the money, but we're talking $1 million. That's a lot of for the money. Yes, the Porsche is mostly more practical, but we do need to talk about the fact that Corvette has the best ride. It is so good. It is straight up magic. The magnetorheological dampers are just incredible. And in the city, if you live with bumps, it's so much smoother than the Porsche, whereas the Porsche like it kind of is assaulting and annoying. And I think the thing here is that both of these cars are really, really good. Neither one is a disappointment. Neither one of them is lame. They're both really good. And they're actually surprisingly different considering that they have about the same power density, about the same price, and they're both sports cars, and they're both blue.
With that said, we've really got to acknowledge that the Porsche does have the ups on this thing on practicality. Yes, this has a big boot there in the back that you can put your golf clubs in, and there's a frunk as well. But the Porsche frunk is significantly bigger, and you can't throw stuff behind the seats in this. It's also just a little bit more awkward to get in and out of. This feels a little bit more supercar inconvenience, which is charming. But if you want something that you're going to drive every day, this does feel a little bit more of an occasion than a commuter. But then that's always kind of been the Corvette thing, hasn't it?
The volume of space in the Corvette is not bad, but it's strangely shaped. It would be a good case for fitted luggage, if you wanted to do that. But it definitely, for better or worse, depending on how you're shopping this, it is more dramatic. And it does feel like more of an occasion than the Porsche. Maybe that's a downside. Maybe you want something that's just kind of normal, you can hop in every day. Maybe it's a weekend car for you. But this does feel a bit more special to me. And I think driving these cars, it kind of seems like each one is built for the use case of those who buy it. Porsche 911 buyers, they buy those cars, they keep them for 10 years, they put 200,000 miles on them. Corvette owners also have them for 10 years, but they keep them in a garage and they take them out on weekends and drive them on nice occasions. Each car is perfectly suited for its own purpose that I think they'll actually be used for. It is such a genuinely good feeling in 2025 to have a V8 just puking out exhaust without a care or a turbo in the world.
I may be snooty, but this feels special.
It's special. Everything's turbocharged now.
Of course, that comes with a fuel cost as well.
Well, you would think that it being a hybrid, well, it's got to be great on gas. And it's better than the standard Corvette, however, only marginally so. And in fact, amusingly, it's actually worse on the highway because you're just pulling that front wheel drive and all that weight along at steady state. It is better combined and it is better in the city. But if you're like, oh, I'm going to buy the E-Ray and the fuel savings will make up for it. No, not really. That said, the Corvette's party trick is that on the highway, it's a star. It gets great fuel mileage at a steady state on the highway. On my way to this shoot, I got 9.3 and it's rated at 9.7, which is pretty good considering that it runs 10s, I'll remind you. Hell, I gotta say, I was staunchly against these hybrids because they have electricity, but I think I might have been wrong.
Yeah, for all my purism, this is actually rather enjoyable and doesn't feel like it's been diluted by electrification.
Could it be possible that a team of hundreds of educated and highly qualified engineers know more than us?
No, I live in a comment section.
Right.
Let's digest our thoughts.
I think the biggest thing that I learned today is that both of these cars are so well executed.
They are. These don't feel any less for being hybrids.
Yeah, like you said at the very beginning, in the era of compliance cars, there's some which you can say they're like, oh, do we have to do a hybrid? Fine. Not these. These both are very, very well done, and there's not a loser in the bunch.
There isn't. They are, however, really rather different cars, and despite both being comparably powered, comparably quick, and almost comparably priced, they answer very different questions.
I think what we've come to the conclusion is that both are fun to drive. Both are great at what they do, except the Porsche seems to be built for the everyday user. If you want a sports car you can use every day with no compromises and save a bit on fuel, 911 GTS is the answer. If you could only have one car, it had to be your only car, you couldn't go wrong.
With the Corvette though, well, it does offer a little bit more sense of occasion. It does so with a lot of inconvenience. And yes, it is more comfortable over some of those bumps and would be a really nice tourer, but it still isn't quite the sort of car that you want to jump into every single day in the way that you could without thought there. This is, however, a less expensive car, and those $30,000, $40,000 are an important consideration. Were I spending this kind of money though, I think I would want to weigh whether I could actually enjoy my purchase on more than just the weekend.
And so I think that's the conclusion that we've come to. If you want to drive the car every day, this is the one you can live with every day and still have fun. Like, it's not a slouch on the back roads, it's just as good.
This is absolutely ready for the track as the back roads. But if you want something that's really ready for the track and really exciting for the back roads and that gets a little bit more attention, looks a little bit more exotic, this does a lot, and it's in many ways the last of its kind. This is a special car, and we're really lucky that it's still around, even in this evolved form.
And I think we also have to answer the second comparison, which is, for both these cars, did the hybrid improve it?
In the case of the Porsche, I think we're agreed that yes, it makes that power available so effectively, and that it does so cleverly that for the nerds who know what's going on underneath, it's a really neat car to think about.
And in the same way, the hybrid system in the Corvette, it doesn't really improve the fuel economy. I mean, it does by like a little bit, by this much, but you can't deny it pushes the performance envelope of this car so much farther. This is a performance hybrid, and you're damn right, it is faster in a straight line. It pulls harder out of corners. It absolutely improves this car in a sporting way. So the answer is, yeah, the hybrids are good.
This is pretty sweet. This is a good problem to have. And it's also really unusual in that it doesn't leave us with a clear binary winner. The fact that both of these are so exceptional within their briefs is really rather excellent. We're spoiled for choice in this segment, and that's not something that's been true of very many generations of motoring.
Genuinely, thank you for watching, and if you have an idea for which two cars we should compare next, let us know in the comments.
For Driving.ca, I'm Al Alder.
And I'm Clayton Seams.